Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. You are live with me, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you for the support. Thank you guys for reaching out to me in the backgrounds with information, with content, with everything else. I've been appreciating that and look forward to receiving more from you guys in the future. So, last time we spoke, of course, was on Friday. We spoke a lot about Kavanaugh, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about him today. I know that there is the story around Kavanaugh is just like ivy. It is just like ivy because it just spreads everywhere. There's so many different ways that it's slipped its roots from here to there, and so that's definitely a it's definitely a story that even just covering what happened during his hearing, during his and Christine Blasey Ford's hearing, that would be enough to cover a week's show, really breaking it down and getting into that. So won't spend too much time on that, but I also want to talk a little bit about what is happening. There was actually a Democrat from California, Representative Khanna, and what he has is he pushed out a bill last year that got shut down, and then this year he's getting it back up there again. He's trying to get it out. Right now we're sitting at around 23 members of the House that have co-sponsored this bill. Kim, welcome. And what's in this bill is to actually follow Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. You guys have seen me harp about this. You guys have seen me just get outraged over just the lack of adherence to the Constitution. Well, what he wants to do is actually say, look, Congress has not declared a war in Yemen. There is a civil war going there. There is an attempted genocide, but there is no threat to the American population. There's no grounds for him to be there. There's no justification for our troops to be there. And without having that declaration, we need to go ahead and pull those troops back. So it's not. So we'll get into that as well. But that's a big piece, and it's coming from a Democrat. And so I know people were like, "Oh, well, that's because of Trump." We'll get into that entire story, but I wanted to at least bring it up. Daniel, welcome in. If you guys haven't been following Daniel, the anti-Antifa, make sure you guys give him a follow. His show has moved to Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And fantastic show. Always got great content on there. So thank you for joining in, Daniel. And yeah, so getting started on this big debacle around Kavanaugh. What is the cost and to the American people, to the precedent, to everything else with this hearing? So what we had, give a quick recap. What we had in the beginning was we had a plan to get Kavanaugh through at the last second, spin up midterms a little bit, get the conservative base riled up, get the Republicans out there voting, and get a good, strong red wave. This was how they were going to try and push the wave or structure the wave to be a much larger entity. And because of the accusations, because they had to show that they were being empathetic and that they cared about the accuser, it's been delayed. Now it looks like he's going to get voted on probably around Wednesday. He's going to get appointed. I'm pretty confident on that. But it comes at a huge cost. Everything that you do has a cost. Getting Kavanaugh selected at a rapid rate, there is some cost to this. Now, if you guys missed the news and I didn't report it to you guys before, so if you guys take all your news from me, I apologize. But President Trump did come out and actually order an FBI investigation. The investigation is specified on scope and length of time. What you are seeing right now is not only Christine Blasey Ford's attorney come out and say it's irresponsible, it's disgusting that you'd put a scope on this. It needs to be unlimited scope because if they find other crimes, they need to go after those crimes. And Democrats, whether it's politicians, pundits, or just your average Democratic troll on Twitter, they say the same things. It has to be unlimited. It has to be blown out of proportion. And so what I want to read for you guys is one of the beautiful things that I love so very much, and that is the Constitution. So I'm going to read to you guys. Yeah, special counsel. That was my tweet yesterday. So the Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause. So this is the probable cause was the allegation, and so they're issuing a warrant on that, but is supported by oath or affirmation, which is fine, and particularly describing the place to be searched. The place to be searched, that's your scope. That's saying what you're allowed to look at, what is not going to be applicable for this. To give you guys an example of this, if you have reasonable expectations to have a search and to get a warrant authorized to go after somebody who you think stole a vehicle, stole a car, right? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's a Dodge Ram 3500. Beautiful truck. So you think that he's stolen a Dodge Ram 3500. Are you going to be looking in the man's toilet for this? Are you going to be looking in his dresser? Are you going to be looking anywhere within his house, really? No. You're going to look in his garage. You're going to look in his in the shed out back. You're going to look around on the yard. You're not going to be looking in the smaller, intricate places that there's no possible way for it to be there. So the searches must be scoped down. So it's beautiful to see that people on the left is being outraged that this one doesn't have an unlimited scope. The scope is what makes it constitutional. With that being said, you look at the special counsel, there is no scope. Whatever you find, you can go after. So, now I think that we've been able to use, there's one good change in this, is that more people can now learn, hey, look, a scope's important whenever you're doing an investigation, because you don't want people going in and searching around for anything and everything that they can find. So the Brett Kavanaugh thing definitely did bring a good change, as long as we're taking this and we're learning each step of the way. So Fourth Amendment, great thing. President Trump following by the Constitution. I know a lot of you love it just as much as I do. Love it so much when the president follows the Constitution, just as any other politician in office, any other elected public servant follows it. And so it's always beautiful to see that. If it falls in favor of your party, you cheer even louder, and it's great. You don't want people discovering other bad stuff about Kavanaugh. It's not about wanting to find bad stuff about people. It's about the idea that if we can always find a justification to expand the scope or to not have a scope, anything that you justify for somebody else will come back and affect you in the same way. I don't think that you want somebody just to say, hey, I seen this guy kick a dog. Where's the evidence? There's no evidence, but now they get to go look through your entire house. They get to go look through your bank records. They get to go look at your taxes. They get to go look at everything and anything in order to try to find a way to incriminate you. I don't think that any of us want to live in a world where that exists, right? So it's just on those grounds. You don't want to give another entity full authority over you. I think he's lying his justification for further investigation. Well, there is an investigation. And how are you determining his lie? I think that you're applying your subjective standard to it, but you can't prove of his lies of any substance, if you will, right? I'm not accusing Christine Blasey Ford of lying, and I'm not accusing him of lying. I'm not accusing anybody of lying within this, because I don't know, and I'm certain that there's no one here that does know for a fact. If you do, please do contact a member of the Judiciary Committee and provide them with that information. We would love to see this get ended right here, right now. That is funny, Lynn. It's not subjective. He said he didn't drink much. Turns out he's a big old drinker. Okay, so didn't drink much versus he's a big old drinker. Both of those terms are subjective. Would you not agree? Because how much is not that much? How much is a big old drinker? How many drinks per day? You're getting into where you're trying to qualify things with arbitrary terms, and that's when it becomes subjective. Maybe I think having one beer is drinking way too much. Now everyone is a drunk. But somebody else could think, nah, as long as you drink less than a 30 rack, you're good. Drinking was illegal for him at the time. He acknowledged that during his testimony. Ford lied about fear of flying. Why? If you get a big enough incentive, people will get over their fears of flying. And apparently going on vacations a couple times a year will get you over that incentive, or will provide you enough incentive to be able to move on and fly on these planes. So there's one of the costs or the effects of Brett Kavanaugh is that now people should be looking at the Fourth Amendment with a little more love and a little more, hey, maybe we need to protect this. Now, what's sad is that the Fourth Amendment is protecting the guy that has also written an opinion that goes against the Fourth Amendment, right? If we remember what the Patriot Act is, the Patriot Act was in response to 9/11. President Bush brought out the Patriot Act in order to say, look, we're going to have to squeeze out a little bit of your liberties, squeeze out a little bit of your rights, for your sovereignty, for you to be secure in your persons, papers, houses, and effects. We're gonna have to squeeze a little bit of that out for your safety. We're doing this for your safety. And so one of the things that Judge Kavanaugh had done, Kimmy, welcome in. One of the things that Kavanaugh done was he had actually said, I think that the government going after phone metadata, going after your calls, who you're calling, when you're calling, where you're calling from, those kinds of things, that's fine. The government, that's in pursuance of the Fourth Amendment. We can go ahead and collect it. So his interpretation of the Fourth Amendment is one of the things that I'm not really sold on. I think there needs to be an upgrade, if you will, in that department for him. So it's amazing that the Fourth Amendment is protecting him and he wouldn't protect everyone else's Fourth Amendments. I know I've seen a lot of libertarians trying to push that as if that's something that, we should just get rid of his Fourth Amendment, get rid of his protections in order to destroy the man because he wants to destroy other people's Fourth Amendments. I disagree with that entirely. I think that we need to have civil conversations. I think that somebody should have brought that up. But of course, no one was actually worried about the constitutional basis of Kavanaugh. They just worried you're pro-gun or you're anti-Roe versus Wade. Those were the two big stances that we saw. Although I will say he is a breath of fresh air when it comes to a judge or a discussion in which we saw the Constitution being just hammered and just discussed over and over and over again. That was beautiful to see the people who actually watched his confirmation hearings. You got to learn about the Constitution from the people that are in office. So you know that they know it. You know that they know the Constitution because they can talk about it. Now it's time that we hold them to their oaths. Got to do it. We have to do it, guys. I promise you, all of your complaints of a bigger government goes away when you hold them to the Constitution. You don't like what the Republicans are doing, hold them to the Constitution. You don't like what the Democrats are doing, hold them to the Constitution. And that will be fine. The more they fight them, the more I want them confirmed. It's because of the way that they're attacking him. It's because of the way that they're attacking him, in my opinion, right? Because they're not hitting them with hard facts, right? Senator Whitehouse coming in and going, hey, what about this bird? Oh, that means flatulence. So does that also mean flatulence when Mark Judge wrote that in your book? Like, that was just a silly remark. When it came to Dianne Feinstein, right? This was a testimony about Christine Ford's allegations against Judge Kavanaugh, and Dianne Feinstein decided to bring in the other two allegations that were predominant at the time. And that caused that just shows that she's trying to just collect up as much of a mud, as much clay and dirt and fecal matter that she can, and just trying to dump it on him. And all he had to do was say, no, I completely disagree. I think it was I emphatically. That's it. That's what I'm saying emphatically when she was saying, so you don't give any credence to these allegations. Jonathan said Kavanaugh was unhinged during that interview. I'm concerned for his family. I think that's why he was unhinged, was because he also was concerned for his family. When you are, put yourself in his shoes. Imagine if you're going through, you're working through a 20-year career. You've been doing nothing. It's longer than 20 years, but you've been doing great things. You've been inspiring people. You have 65 character witnesses from women. You have this, that, and the other, and you've been living this life, and then now in the 11th hour of your nomination to the Supreme Court, you get a wild, non-corroborated allegation against you, and that causes everything to stop on a dime. And now you have Democratic senators calling you evil, attacking your character, attacking your everything, your history. You have the media coming out and spinning up lies that are being promulgated and propagated by these members of Congress. You have people on Twitter, on Facebook, on all over social media making death threats, making threats against him, making threats against his family, against his daughters. You have people threatening rape against his daughters, against his wife. You have all these different things, and then you're like, but I can't believe he didn't have a stellar temperament when they were continuing to push false narratives right in front of his face. Dr. Ford allegation isn't false. It has not been proven, but I'm not going to say it's not false. Absolutely a Democrat ploy, but I don't think he's fit to hold that seat. Why do you not believe that he is fit to hold that seat in modern day? Like if you just look at that entire situation, I don't think that any of us would have been rational during that. I think that he composed himself much better than what a lot of us would. Why lie consistently under oath? Kavanaugh doesn't think anyone's going to fact check his statements. He was the only one that provided evidence to the contrary. He was the only one that actually gave evidence other than a statement. So I think that people are overlooking that because they would rather just believe somebody based on their gender or based on partisan views. Lied about the drinking age. That made no sense. So was he just misrepresenting the law then? Like, how was that? I guess I'd never fact checked to see what years of age was legal for drinking. Yeah, so it's amazing the people that want to say, look, somebody was lying. And they just want to drop this accusation, but they can't prove it. Without being able to prove it, like a substantial allegation or a substantiated confirmation that somebody lied, you're just calling them a lie, and you're looking no better than either side of the judiciary. It was just disgusting, and I think that you're continuing that. By espousing those views. I don't think that you're working to the betterment of this. Yeah, a growing number of women complaining of Kavanaugh pattern of sexual offenses, just like, so there are more allegations. There's been more allegations that have been thrown out at a faster rate. There's been more allegations against other people. There was a Republican in Seattle, Washington that just got the allegations against him. There's a lot of them coming out there. He lied about a number of things now. You would have to be more specific of what he lied about. The Bill Cosby comparison is wrong. Who's talking about the Bill Cosby comparison? I agree the Bill Cosby comparison is wrong. I've seen a lot of people trying to push that and saying, look, Bill Cosby got away or got sentenced because he was black, and Brett Kavanaugh won't because he's white. I think that's disgusting that people would try to race bait like that. He couldn't stop lying under oath. That was weird. Can you name a couple for us, Jonathan? If you said he couldn't stop lying, you'd be able to easily extract a couple of them and provide them for us. There's evidence against Bill Cosby. Yes, there's over 12 witnesses or over 10 witnesses of it, and even within his testimony, he even admitted to utilizing drugs. I know I wouldn't hire him after that interview. Good. Well, you're not a senator, so it really doesn't matter on that. And to include Cosby in the conversation about Kavanaugh is wrong. I completely agree with you, modern day. Bill Cosby found guilty eventually after Cosby using the same defenses. See, but don't worry. Don't worry. We do have the wonderful Philly fanatic in here who's always going to try to race bait, like what he just did, by trying to conflate a conversation about Bill Cosby with 10 witnesses versus Brett Kavanaugh, in which the accuser names a couple of witnesses and all witnesses say, I don't recall that situation. I was never there. I don't recall any situation in any way resembling that, and I've never witnessed Brett Kavanaugh act in that manner. But it's okay, Philly, I know. To include Cosby, yep. The Safeway she said Judge worked at didn't even open until years after she said she saw them there. She got her second door 4 years before she said she did. Yes, that was actually proven, Kimmy. Thank you. Devil's Triangle was a lie. He lied about his level of drinking. Devil's Triangle was a lie. I've never played that game, so I wouldn't know if that was a lie or not. As for the amount he was drinking, his level of drinking, that's not been proven or disproven though. Like that's a major fundamental issue. You have a lot of characters saying different things. You don't get to say this one was closer to what my bias says it was, therefore we believe this one. I said nothing racist, and I'm not even from South Carolina. Wow. See, now you're accusing South Carolinians of it. Growing number of women complaining Kavanaugh pattern of sexual offenses, just like Bill Cosby found guilty eventually after Cosby using same defenses. But you brought up the two as if they were in any way resembling the other. There's nothing there to conflate the two. Okay, yes, that one is a misrepresentation. Yes, I don't think that would be enough in order to perjure him on it. The point that was made was about him saying these people, the witnesses that were being pointed out, PJ and all them, that was, he said that they denied the entire story. What they said is that I didn't recall and I've never witnessed Brett Kavanaugh commit those things. And so there is a small difference between the two, but I don't think it's going to be enough in order to actually perjure himself on that one. Trump claimed he was never happened. That was on tape saying otherwise. But Trump is not the same thing as Kavanaugh. I think that we can look at President Trump and Kavanaugh in a wildly different limelight. Right? When you look at President Trump was he's not somebody who was known for donating his time for the homeless. He's not somebody who's known for being in church all the time. He's not somebody that people look up to on a moral level, if you will. And then you look at Brett Kavanaugh, who, apart from the allegations that have been made only in the last 3 weeks or whenever it was, technically, I guess, since July, other than those allegations, he's been basically I don't want to call him a saint, but he's been a great figure for a lot of people. Brett Kavanaugh is an entirely different beast than what President Trump is. And to act as if their interactions, even if they're similar, that they are the same, is just to be entirely dishonest, I believe. You got to have a little bit more facts and a little more tact if you want to make that correlation in any way a logical one. And so that's, yeah. It's there's another large issue that's coming on with this Brett Kavanaugh thing, and because of partisan politics, because of basically a feminist movement that says believe the woman should always be believed. If she's willing to come out and make an accusation, then we have to believe her. What this is creating is furthering the idea of misandry, furthering the idea that women don't do wrong, that men are only aggressive, they're only out there for one thing. And so just merely providing an allegation is enough to stop somebody, to end their career, to end their opportunities, whether it is a professional or within your family, within your communities. Like there's a large amount of destruction that can happen just by accepting these.
You're telling me I can be wrong as a woman?
I'm married to you. I know you're wrong plenty of times. We have to hear them. Yes. See, that's the important thing, right? Is the women out there that are making these accusations, we need to hear them, but there also needs to be a due process. There needs to be let's look to see, is there any credible witnesses? Is there any credible evidence? Is there anything corroborating this? If not, then especially if it's 36 years ago, I think it would be better to slow down. It's just the way that it's been going. So from our non-constitutional lawyer, I think our GOP would be smart to pick another nominee, but GOP keeps hiring guys who plead. So he's conflating all GOP people together, and that's fine. You can do as you please. Collectivism is cancer, and everyone should denounce collectivism and cancer, and so doubly denounce that. What's amazing is that people aren't even focused on Brett Kavanaugh's failings, his downfalls, the problems that he's pushed and endorsed. No one's willing to talk about those problems. What they're saying is based on these allegations, we should go away. Based on his views for Roe versus Wade, based on this, based on that, but they're not actually looking at the Constitution to be able to bounce this off of this. They don't. I think there's a fundamental misstep in our education on what Article 3 of the Constitution he did back lie detectors. And I think that's a complete farce. I wish he wouldn't have done something as stupid as that. Based on what Article 3 of the Constitution, right, the judiciary branch, talking about what they're supposed to be doing, what they're not supposed to be doing. Are they supposed to be legislating from the branch? No, because that's the legislative branch's job, and everything else. It's ridiculous. Yes, so there's a couple things that are working against Brett Kavanaugh, and now that you did mention the lie detector test, I didn't bring this up, right? The polygraph test. There's a couple of fundamental issues that were going on with the polygraph test that really people aren't talking about. So I wanted to shine some light on that for you guys, and that is that if you're going to be going through a polygraph test, you have to be kind of in somewhat a normative state. You want to be effectively, you want to be a calm, rational day. You go in and you want to have your body be normalized. Why is that? Because they're going to be taking readings of your responses. Now, if you are stressed out, if you are emotional for the day, if you were, say, at your grandmother's funeral that day, you might be a little bit emotional. You might have a little bit of a heightened response to a lot of things. Yes, people can stump the polygraph. Yes, but when you are emotional and you're in that, the basic effectiveness of a polygraph test is only around 75% normal. But when you go to somebody who's having an emotional day, like their grandmother passing away, it drops drastically. It drops markedly down to about the 23-25% effectiveness. So her passing is not a clear indication of anything. But of course, Brett Kavanaugh's decisions in the past kind of did corroborate the ability for that to be accepted. There's a reason why polygraphs are not admissible in court, and that should be, why they shouldn't be, and everything else. And that's really it. They're just too fragile. They're too easily manipulated in so many different ways, and you can actually get false positives. GOP Senate doesn't want to testimony to the lie detector expert. GOP doesn't really want to get that much more involved. They don't want to go in and literally go and subpoena every single person in the country in order to get through these allegations. I don't know if you've been paying attention or not, but the GOP just kind of wants to get through this, and that's their prerogative. They want to do this for the midterms. They only ask 2 questions and not about Kavanaugh. Yes, that was a huge issue there as well. Is your statement accurate? Did you make up anything within your statement? Nah, we're done here. We're done here. Why are they pushing him so much? There has to be others to nominate. So when it comes to why they're pushing Brett Kavanaugh through, one of the major speculations is that Justice Kennedy, when he stepped down, that was one of the things, right? Judge Kavanaugh was under Kennedy. He worked for him, and so he was kind of groomed in that manner. And so a lot of views is that Kennedy was going to step down and help bolster up the Republicans, and by giving it up and by allowing this to go through, he basically said, look, I'm going to nominate him. President Trump, please nominate him. And there we have him being nominated. Now, if the GOP now was to overturn that step and say, all right, we're not going to we're going to change who we're going after, that actually does destroy Kavanaugh even worse, right? That says, hey, look, even the GOP disagrees with him and thinks that he's lying or anything else. So there doesn't have to be any charges there, but the optics, the view of the public, that is where the destruction would happen, right? He would not be able to go in workplaces. He would have to just retire essentially, and probably get put into some services where people don't know who he is. That right there is a huge reason why the GOP won't just give up on him. And I think that that's right. You don't take a man that's lived a life like he's lived, and just not let the process go through, not actually investigate this and destroy his life. You at least give him the benefit of the doubt, allow the investigation to go through, and then if the investigation finds him guilty, then you move on, right? But you don't leave it early. You don't make preemptive decisions. No news here. Why can't Republicans admit they would do the same thing? Republicans in the past have not been big on pushing evidence-less accusations. I tend to believe what comes out of her mouth, not what is reported. So is there a reason why you tend to believe her and not believe Kavanaugh himself or anyone else? I thought we didn't care about perjury. As a whole, Congress doesn't really care about perjury. It picks and chooses when it does and when it doesn't. Supreme Court is a joke. Lobbyists will affect your lives more for the bad. The court. Supreme Court is not a joke. It's a serious branch of the government that's supposed to be basically the overwatch and to ensure that the other 2 branches maintain their constitutionality. That's a huge thing. Talking about her statement. I got you. Okay. Yukon, welcome for sharing out everything. They backed slavery. Who backed slavery? Thomas, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? A Dem House would impeach for perjury. Democratic House would impeach a lot of people right now because the Republicans are in power. They wouldn't have to worry about finding any justification or any reason. They would just do it. Dred Scott rule. Yeah, you know who else supported that? A lot of Democrats supported that as well. So if we're really going to try and make this a partisan thing, the Dred Scott has been defended by both sides of the aisle. That's probably why we should, I don't know, look to a third party that actually cares about the individual, that cares about your freedoms, that cares about your safety. That'd be amazing. Rape is serious. Why are Republicans mad because of an accusation? Because an accusation has been deemed to be truthful because it was an accusation instead of providing evidence. That's why a lot of Republicans are upset, and because rape is serious. And rape is disgusting. Rape is a huge violation of the non-aggression principle. And I'm of the thought process that if somebody is trying to rape you and you, I don't know, commit an act of violence against them and you neutralize them to where they aren't able to continue aggressing against you, I would look the other way. I agree. It's not rape. It's attempted rape. I agree with that. But he had said rape is serious. And so I wanted to actually utilize the terms that he was using. So rape is an extremely serious crime as well as an accusation. Therefore, we want to see the evidence for it. That's why there's investigations before saying she's fake. So the investigation is going on, but the fact that she provided no evidence, the witnesses that she called out have denied recalling the situation and have denied ever seeing Brett Kavanaugh commit the acts in which she said that they did. That's kind of the grounds in which people say, look, there's nothing there. There's no there there. So if people would be serious about ending lobbyists as this court thing, we would be much better. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, which is why I want to see all of Congress relinquish all of the authority that they've granted themselves. If it's not within Article 1, Section 8, which is Congress's authority, well, Article 1, if it's not an Article 1 power that's enumerated and delegated to them by the states, they do not get that authority. You remove them, and that removes them from a large swath of everything. We're talking about 95% of what Congress does. Lobbyists won't be there because lobbyists have no control over those things. The lobbyists will lose all power. That's never going to happen. But you want to get rid of them. I want to get rid of them. I'm telling you the only way that we can do it, and that's by actually abiding by the Constitution. What you want to do is somehow stop and limit lobbyists, but we're still going to be able to. There's no way to stop it. You think a riot. So you think violence is the only way. Okay, that's fine. Clintons do perjury all the time. Yes, they do perjure. We've seen this countless times before, and it's never checked. I'm more angry that Feinstein knew about this for 20 or 30 days. More than 30 days, yes. So that was another good point that I wanted to bring up, and that was that with Dianne Feinstein, a lot of people are blaming all Democrats for this delay. It was Dianne Feinstein who held on to the letter. It was Dianne Feinstein who knew about it from July and kept it until the week after. And then we have to figure out who leaked it. If it was a Dianne Feinstein staffer, that does fall on her. If it was not a Dianne Feinstein staffer, then she's free to go. But people are trying to blame all Democrats for it. It's not all Democrats. It's just a couple select ones that were involved with this that could have pushed for an investigation earlier, right? Been like, hey, look, I know you want to keep it anonymous. Do you think that you would be willing to let us do an investigation? And she, no attempt for that, right? No attempt for that. Philly, recommend learning how to spell perjury. I thought you were an attorney. I thought you were a lawyer. Why don't you know how to spell perjury? Isn't that like your favorite word? Shouldn't that be? No, Cebu, you got it too. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one catching on to that. So it's but yeah, so there's a lot of this. A lot of people are trying to point the fingers at other parties, at other people, and they're saying, look, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. I think that we need to stop just trying to blame the other side and start actually looking at the ownership and say, look, this action was because of this person or because of this person or everything else. I agree with you, Terry. Yes, presumption of innocence. Once we can start doing that, then we can start holding people accountable. But if we're just going to try to hold entire parties accountable, we're falling back into this collectivism again. And falling back into that collectivism is cancer, but it is also you're not saying, look, I'm going to be better than that. You're not holding anybody accountable, so no one's going to be changing. It's just going to create the divide. It's just going to create more hatred, and we're going to have people like what we're having now, where we have members of Congress advocating for harassment of other congressmen and women. We have members of the media advocating for it. We have staffers advocating for this. It's so stupid. It is so insanely stupid, and their followers are falling right in line with it. And they're saying, yeah, let's go ahead and harass people. Let's go ahead and shout people out when they go to eat at restaurants or at the gasoline stations, as she said. These are That's unbecoming of our officials and of our country. We should be better than that. We should be more civil than that. We need to get better in this country, and it starts by pointing out actual problems for the actual person committing those problems. When you hold people accountable and you're actually able to prove that this person was accountable for that, instead of just blanketing a statement on people, you point it out, you can make change. You can drive change in that way. Terry Stevens, I think that a lot of Democratic voters have been hearing it. So on C-SPAN, during the commercial breaks, or during some of the breaks, I guess, I heard this from the Chris Ann Hall show. If you guys aren't listening to Chris Ann Hall, you guys are messing up. KRISANNE Hall, HALL.com. Go check her out. They were talking about during some of the breaks, they would have callers. So people that were Democrats or people that were independents that were former Democrats were calling in, and they were saying, look, the way that the Democratic Party is running this is just absolutely despicable. So I think that while the intentions of the Democratic Party were to push forward and to obstruct and resist and prevent and delay and just try to push it off for after the midterms, their result, because of the hysteria that's been surrounding them, because of the berserkness of them, we're seeing where they're actually suppressing their voter base. This is actually one of the second costs that is coming from this, from the Judge Kavanaugh thing. In my opinion, they're suppressing a couple of votes. They're suppressing a couple thousand people in different districts. That's going to be monumental for that quote unquote blue wave that's supposed to be coming. So we're going to see a lot more of a diminished voter turnout from the Democrats, I think, because of their actions. Now, if they're a little more principled and they were pointing at things and saying, look, this is unconstitutional, this is the problem, this is this, right? Then we can then they probably wouldn't be going down this trail. But because of the way that they came in, they said Kavanaugh is guilty. Now that she has testified, now he's even more guilty. Let's go and find and dig into each and every way. Let's go through his yearbook. Let's go through this story. Let's go through that story. Let's throw this accusation at him. People just see that it's become kind of a banana republic. And part of me is excited to see some of the voter base be suppressed. I think that some of the voter base across the board needs to be suppressed. I think that I don't believe in the government regulation of that, of course, but I think that there are a lot of uneducated people out there that are just voting because they're like, it's my civic duty to vote. It's your civic duty to become educated. It's your civic duty to learn who's running, what their platform is. Is their platform in accordance with the Constitution of your state, of the country? How are they ruling? Are they going to be a corrupt person? Are they an honest, integritous person? You got to know these people, and then you do your part, you do your action, and you go cast your ballot. That's fine, Thomas. You can think people are stupid based on their geographic location, but that sounds a lot like I don't know. Would you also say that some countries are shitholes? I'm just curious, because if you think that geographic locations determine somebody's education or smarts, then I think that you can also agree that there are countries out there that are shitholes. Okay, I wanted to just make sure you are simply being consistent. American politicians are bought. Completely agree. A lot of them are being bought. A lot of them are not being bought, but they're being accused of being bought. The problem is that there's a lot of people out there that have stances that were already consistent with the groups that are paying them. And And so it's viewed as, right? Like Marco Rubio has always kind of been somewhat strong on the First or the Second Amendment, and then people were like, "Oh, look at this! The NRA is paying for him. They're bribing him. They're making him change his views. His views didn't change." And it's those thought processes. It's not always 100% corrupt. Sometimes it is. I think Mexico is one of those countries. Okay. What's he taking money for? Because so here's, if you guys watch The Swamp or listen to the podcast The Swamp, there's actual members of Congress right now. Thomas Massey is one of them that comes in and talks about the disgusting things that happens within your within the two political parties. So if you want to be on a committee and the committees are being ranked A, B, and C, right? C is the low end, A is the predominant ones. Yeah, I have noticed the ad hominems are plenty. And so if you want to get into a C committee, you have to raise X amount of money each year. If you want to get into a B committee, you basically, it's the next tier up. If you want to get onto an A, you've got to be paying out the ass to your respective party. Yes, the veterans are a C level. And so in order to fill these seats, you have to buy it from your party. And so they basically need the lobbyists. Now, a lot of these people say, look, that's disgusting, that's horrible, that can't be constitutional. Now, the problem is that within Article 1 of the Constitution is that they get to make the rules and the laws with governing over themselves. I know that there's a convention of states that's trying to be brought together. I think we're currently at 14 states, 14 or 17 states, in order to come in and enact new amendments, such as an amendment that laws that Congress passes on the people also equally is being administered to them, and vice versa, and a couple other ones similar to that. But the problem is that the government has become drunk with money. How do we fix that? It's going to take an incredible amount of people in order to change it, without actually coming in and creating new amendments and hoping to not mess up the system worse than what it already is. It's a huge issue. Yeah, the amendment where members of Congress are getting paid now, I think that's disgusting. And actually, if you guys look back, if you guys look at the history, that was the very first amendment. That was the first amendment, was the payment for members of Congress, and then actually got struck out. There was that one and one other. I don't want to see money come out of politics. Because I think that there is a necessity for politics, because money is not just merely the cold hard cash. It's not just the liquid of how liquid something, in terms of how quickly you can liquidate it and sell it and allocate it or get it allocated for cash and whatnot. But it's also time on a show, time on the news, time here, advertisements, billboards, signs, everything out there. There's so much things out there that politics inherently has to have money. And so you don't just put starts and stops of when things can interact. But we need to get power away. Once you get rid of the power, there's no longer a necessity for as much money. We can both achieve the same goal and reduce the necessity of money. But mine just takes actually controlling the government. Actually telling them, hey, here's this beautiful constitution that you swore an oath to. How about you actually follow it? Does political money include Russian rubles? I don't know. You should ask Hillary Rodham Clinton. Burn. Just kidding. So it's really, at the end of the day, if we reduce the government back to the Constitution, back towards the Constitution, the better off the people will be anytime, any day, any way. The smaller the government, the bigger the person. And I think that you should be as big as you see yourself as. And everyone really does see themselves at the center of their universe, because that's where your entire metaphysical or your entire psychology has been fundamentally rooted in was on your own self, on your own body. And so you are your own center of the universe. And I want you to be able to make your own decisions. I don't want to make those for you. And I don't want to take from you to give to somebody else just because you're doing better than them. And I don't want to take from them and give to you just because they're doing better than you. I want to leave you alone. I want you to leave me alone. And we can all leave each other and live in peace. I think that's the best way. Those who aggress against me, those who commit acts of violence against one another, right? Violation of the non-aggression principle, then we can come in, we can kick ass and take names. But on those grounds of not violating the non-aggression principle, on not aggressing against others who haven't aggressed against us, while we are talking about that, I want to point out, go more in depth with this bill from Democrat from California, Representative Khanna, who said, this article is from The Hill. 24 House lawmakers on Wednesday officially introduced a war powers resolution to end U.S. military involvement in Yemen's civil war. So in Yemen, we've had a civil war going on for a while. There's an idea that there's going to be a genocide and everything else from this, and so so we got involved, right? We put troops on the ground in Yemen. We've been there. We've been fighting within this conflict. There's been no declaration of war from Congress. There's been no inherent threat to the American populace, against the American people, against American property. There's no justification for us to be there. It's because there's a civil war, because Iran is involved. Iran has been backing, I don't recall which group it was, but Iran is somehow affiliated in here. And then there's just a lot of political bloodshed. It's a giant proxy war, which is just basically all of the Middle East. If you just look at the Middle East in portions of Africa, it is absolutely 100% just a proxy war. So we have this giant proxy war. We have American troops there, and what Khanna is doing, and I applaud him for this. Last year, he tried to push this bill out, and it got shut down. As the article says, 1 year later, quote, 1 year later, the bloodshed continues with widespread destruction and disease contributing to the world's worst humanitarian crisis. U.S.-fueled planes continue to drop U.S.-made bombs on innocent victims, the resolution lead sponsor said in a statement Wednesday. This time around, our coalition to end the war has expanded, and the call to withdrawing U.S. involvement is louder. So it shut down last year, but it's mostly all Democrats that are supporting this. You have Adam Smith from Washington. You have House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer from Maryland. You have Eliot Engel from New York. You have two Republicans, Thomas Massie and Walter Jones. I'm surprised I haven't seen Justin Amash get on this. I'm sure if it were to come to a vote that he'd be voting in favor of this. But the entire justification behind this, and even on the actual statement itself about this, is they say, look, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. I will read this one for you guys. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 is just basically saying that to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. So I've been talking for a long while about this, right? With Syria was a big point in which I wanted to talk to you guys and be like, look, we can't go and bomb Syria. There's no war there. There's no declaration of war. So what they're doing is they're taking this Yemen situation and they're expanding upon it, and they're using this. And so it's a beautiful thing. They call out the War Power Act, in which that gave the President of the United States basically 30 days to get involved with the war. And then after 30 days, why is the U.S. involved at all? It's just because it's a proxy war. It's not because of any other reasoning. Mr. Unlabeled, welcome. And so there's just this we put American lives at risk in these countries for no reason. We drop our bombs from our planes. We kill innocents. Innocent civilians are dying, and right now we're waiting to see if they will even put it out there. In introducing Wednesday's resolution, Khanna said he was confident that the outcome won't happen again. I am confident the House Republican leadership will allow this resolution to come to a vote, and that members of the House will hear from their constituents in support of our position against this unauthorized war contributing to Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe. These are big. This is a huge thing, right? So their constituents. This is talking about us, the people, the populace, in support of our position against this unauthorized war contributing to Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe. When we justify a president to use actions of war against another one, against another nation, and killing innocent people, when we justify that, how does that make us look? I don't want to say this in a hyperbolic way. I don't want to say this in a fear-mongering way. But if you look at us from the outside, our populace, when we justify us going into war in these other countries that are no threats to us, we become the terrorists. We become the issue. We are not stopping terrorism. We are causing it. When we utilize terrorism against another country, that doesn't just wipe it out. That doesn't just cool off the jets. We become the terrorists that we're supposed to be fighting against. And so we need to become educated. We need to have a panel of people, that is, i.e., Congress needs to actually get back their war committee and be able to declare war against countries, and then we can go to war against those countries. We don't just go in there and just say we're going to hope this one guy decides that when he goes into war that he's justified in going to war and that he's thought it out and he's weighed both sides. We're going to just give him all this trust. No, we have a constitution. There is a protection. There's a level of protection, not just for our president, not just for our military, but for us as a whole, so that we're not making irrational decisions, going in, committing acts of war against other countries, and then getting blowbacks, not just from them, but from their allies. That's how you get a world war against yourself. It's time that we look at things a little bit more objectively, a little bit less on the party lines, and say, maybe we need to back out. And maybe we need to be vocal. Maybe we need to contact our members of Congress. Yes, we need to contact our House representatives. We need to contact our senators and say, this is important to me. Let's not be the people that we're supposed to be fighting against. Let's not be terrorists. Let's not destroy countries. Let's get out of Afghanistan. Let's get out of Iraq. We've been there for 17 and 18 years. Let's get out of these countries. Let's stop being terrorists. If you guys want us to go into war, you guys make the declaration. Don't make a declaration of war against an idea or an entity. Make it against the nation. Don't do a war against terror, because we saw what you did with the war against drugs. We saw what you did with the war against poverty. You didn't end those things. You caused more of them. And the same thing is happening here with the war on terror. You don't fight terror with terror. It just causes more terror. We need to be more objective. I can't harp enough that we need to throw away our parties and look at things in a much more clear, level-headed way. Now it's on hunger, poor children. And so I urge you guys, if this is hitting you in any way, if this is pulling on your heartstrings that we are committing acts of terror, contact your members of Congress. Contact them and let them know, I don't want you to continue on with these wars. Do something. Read your Constitution. Send it to them. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. Read that to me and then respond to me and what that means. Send that to your congressmen and women. Send that to them. Make them explain to you what a declaration of war means, what that enables, what that entails. And you make this demand loud, you make this demand consistent, and you get other people to do so. And when they don't want to listen to you, because yes, you're right, they don't care. When they don't care, they get removed from office. We need to actually hold our representatives accountable to the Constitution, and that will make us a better country. I promise you. If you read through the Constitution tonight, go read through the Constitution. Read the first half tonight, read the second half tomorrow. If you read through that and you say, this would be worse off than where we're at now, I would love an explanation. I would love an explanation as to why a smaller government is worse than a bigger government. I've been struggling with that mindset for forever. It doesn't make sense. If I look at people in your life, right? Look at everyone. Everyone has all these issues. Everyone kind of sucks at major parts of their lives. No one is perfect at everything. But for some reason, when we elect somebody to represent us, we believe that they are perfect in every aspect. And so we give them all this control. We give them all this authority. We give them all of this power over us. And we say, we hope that you'll do better than what we would have done ourselves. And when they get mad, and they go, they're not doing it the right way, we need this other guy to do it. Maybe, just maybe, you should pick up a shovel and do it yourself, right? Maybe you should find a way to make it better. Maybe you can find somebody that can run this certain aspect better, and you can say, hey, look, how about this guy goes and controls this thing within his own free system, right? He can go and create his own business. He can provide healthcare. So he's really good at surgery. He sucks at doing dentistry. Get rid of your dentistry clinic. Come over here and do the surgery, right? You allow people to do what they need to do. They're able to survive. They're able to thrive. You give the government authority over this. They obstruct. They prevent. They fine. They tax. They create large obstructions for every business out there. They make it more difficult for these companies to survive. As they start failing, they go, look, they're just not good enough. We can do it. No, government. No. We need to be the providers for ourselves. The government's purpose is to protect. It's not to provide. Once we learn this, once we read the Constitution and we learn this, we need to ensure that that's all that they were doing. So with that, guys, I appreciate you guys for joining in. I appreciate you guys for all joining in and enjoying your Sunday night with me. I am Mr. Mark of the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. I will see you guys the next time, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm sure that there will be plenty of great things coming up in the next 2 days to discuss. So I hope that you guys all enjoy your Monday and Tuesday, and I will see you guys then. So have a great night, and I will see you Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Mark of the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon.